Alright, welcome to part 5 of our rocket animation. In part 5 we're going to be animating the camera and going around the rocket. This will be the last thing we do before we render it. We're also going to be adding in a light source to our rocket. So let's get started. Go ahead and right click on your rocket and do Shift S and do cursor to selection. And I'm going to hit period on the number pad so we can zoom in our rocket. And we're going to add in our lamp. So go to add lamp and select lamp. And then use your arrows to drag out the lamp. And as you can see, as we move it, we'll move it kind of towards the top of our rocket so it'll look shiny like that. And you want to position it kind of in the middle in front of your rocket. And then once it's in position, you have the lamp already selected, so hold shift and right click your rocket, and we're going to parent them. So press Control P and select make parent. That way it'll be parented to our rocket. Next thing is we're going to parent the camera to the rocket. So right click the camera, hold shift and right click the rocket. You want your camera to be the active object, so make sure you've selected it first. It'll be the darker pink color. And then do Control P and make parent. And you'll be able to tell right away if you hit R to rotate and you move your mouse, you want the camera to rotate around the rocket. So if we just have our rocket selected and hit R, the camera will rotate around it. Alright, next thing we are going to do is start our animation. So go to frame 1. And we're going to split this screen. So hover your mouse on this line right here until you get that dash line, and then right click and select split area. And when you get this little I-beam, left click and left click on this and hit 0 on your number pad. That way we can look through the camera view. And this will help us out. You can see right now that if we hit F12 and render, we have all this blue down here. So we want to make sure that our plane is large enough so that it covers in this dashed area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and select the plane, and we can size it. So you can hit S and Z and you can make it bigger on the Z, and you can hit S and Y and you can make it wider. And don't worry about how big it is, just make sure it's taking up the area. We want to adjust our camera, and I'm going to left click on this one screen on the left. I'm going to hit 7 so we can see our camera from top down view. And we have these large blocks as a guide, so I'm going to move it back to about right here. So it's about on the corner of the first one. The rocket's on one corner, the camera's on the other corner. And then we have to move it up so the camera will be in the rocket will be inside the camera. So right click on your camera, you can hit G and Z, and that'll allow you to move your camera up. And if we hit F12 to render, we can see that the camera is perfectly in view. Alright, so once you have that done, we're going to insert the keyframe at frame 1. So hit I and select LOC ROT. Next thing we're going to do, and we can see that it's a keyframe because it turned yellow. Next, go to frame 100, hit enter, and we're going to move the camera to the opposite side. So we're going to go move the camera over here. And while the camera is selected like this, hit R and move your mouse till it's in view of the rocket. And then we can go over here, we can hit G and Z, and we can move the camera down. And that's not quite what we want. We need to move the camera back so the rocket will be in full view. So I'm going to hit G and Z again and move the camera up. And I can hit F12 to see what it looks like. That looks good. We can see the smoke coming out. It looks good. So once it looks good, hit I and insert the keyframe by selecting LOC ROT. and it turns yellow, so we know we have a keyframe. So let's go back to frame 1 and hit Alt A and check out what we've done so far. Looks good. Alright, so our next keyframe is going to be at 200. So type in frame 200, press enter, and we're going to go back to the first side that we were at for frame 200. And just use this big square. So the rocket's on one corner, the camera will be on the other. Make sure your camera's selected, press R, and then move your mouse. And we may need to move it back a little. So use the red and green arrows to move it back, and then press G and Z to move the camera back or down. And we can keep working with the green and red arrows to make sure that the rocket is inside the camera. Press G and Z to move the camera up. And we can always check it by hitting F12 and seeing what it looks like. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm going to insert the keyframe there. So I'm going to hit I and then LOCROT. Turn yellow so we have our keyframe. The last one we're going to do is at frame 250. So go to frame 250, hit enter. And we're going to move it kind of to the center here. With the camera selected, hit R and then move your mouse. And I want to I'm going to hit G and Z to move the camera up, and hit F12 to see what it looks like. Alright, so once we have that, we're going to insert the keyframe, LOCROT. So now we can go back to frame 1, hit Alt A, and we can watch our camera animate. And you can go back to any of the frames if you want to change it up. It looks good to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File and Save and click on the link. And our animation is saved. The last thing we need to do is go to Lesson 6, and we are going to save it as an AVI so that we'll have a nice video of our rocket.